o'clock. We are now
Awesome.
live. Paula, I've made you a co-host. I'll be around, but I need to go. I need to go down to the academy. I'm at my place now, so I'll be listening while I kind of get changed and everything.
Keep an eye on it to make sure the tech's okay, because tech is not my expertise. I'm more
I'll
of
stay.
an expert in social entrepreneurship than tech.
I'll surely stay around. But I'll take my camera off and I'll just hear you guys for a bit.
Awesome. Big hugs. Thanks. Thank you. Okay, so let's get started. Ellie and Jack, welcome. Thank you for making time to share your story, your journey, to inspire, to empower, and tell us everything that you guys have done and the next big plan, which I'm so excited for you guys. I can't stop thinking about you guys, actually. Every day I'm trying to look like, because after you guys explain the new business like model, the new opportunity, like everywhere I go, I think about how we can like scale it in other industries and other cities. So yeah, I'm so honored to have you guys here with us.
It's
so
a pleasure.
first, I'd like to know, Jack and Ellie, can you share the story of POWWater? So how did it start? I know it, and I love the story, but I'd like everybody to know more about your story. What was like the turning moment that you just went, I need to do this, and then why water?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So August 23rd, 2017, I was driving from our home here in Wyoming down to Colorado on a business trip. I was working for a law firm at the time, and the only car they could rent me was this big, clunky 20-person passenger van. But I was just alone, and I'm driving down the road, and I basically missed a turn and tried to make a U-turn, but didn't have the turning radius in this van. And immediately, as I'm trying to kind of make this 3-point turn, I look to the right and hear, and it was a giant tractor trailer, a big coal truck here in the States. And I just immediately saw it and realized I'm gonna die right now, for sure. I probably have 5 seconds. So all the adrenaline in my body started pumping, and I had this near-death experience where your life flashes in front of your eyes. But it was a fundamental shift for me, because the question I asked myself in those moments was not what I expected it would be. I always thought it would be maybe fun memories with your family or friends. And what it was really just one question, and it was, what have I done for the world? What have I done for other people? What have I done that's altruistic that now I can take with me to wherever I'm going next? And so the car got cut in half, but I just kind of was sitting there as like the tractor trailer took off the front of the car and looked down and realized, oh, I have legs. Like I'm alive, like I'm alive. I lived through this thing. And
so you were able to walk out of the car?
I walked out of the car and I was on the side of the road, just like, how did I just walk away from this thing?
The car was cut in half.
Yeah, the car was cut in half, and I had a second chance. So, and with that second chance, I just kind of realized, if that's the question at the end of life, well, I should probably alter some things in my life to reflect this question that one day I'll face again. And one thing led to another. I had no idea what that meant, but began to kind of streamline some coincidences or some intuition into this bigger feeling, which was what are the world's most pressing problems? And I'll let the data show that, and that drove us to water. And recognizing that water is the foundation for quality of life.
When you were doing the research, was it like the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or was it friends? Like, where did you do the research? Because I mean, I'm super like passionate about the UN SDGs, but like the sky's the limit of what we can do with it. And I know that water is one within 17. But
yeah, no, absolutely.
How did you get to water?
Yeah, I definitely looked at some of the SDGs and things like that. But really, it was finding that once a community has access to water, what then happens? Which is like, a water pun, like ripple effects, So a tremendous amount of ripple effects can happen when communities have access to water. And the reason for that is so much time is spent on fetching quality drinking water, one. And two, when that burden is lifted, what we see is education, and literacy rates are improved. Health and well-being of the community obviously are improved, as water is still the leading cause of death in so many parts of the world, bad water. And then third, what we saw is the gender equality gap is really shrunk, because women are the ones that predominantly have this burden of fetching water. So when you're able to kind of lift this burden, what then we see is economic opportunity is improved, and even young girls can then actually play a part in school, and classroom attendance rates are improved as well. So it's just a tremendous thing. But yeah, it took us a long time to figure that out, and a long time to figure out how we wanted to work in water.
Mm-hmm. And how did you start connecting the dots? So what was the next step? So once you just realized all of the issues and opportunities, because we're logging in from Australia, you're in the United States, and it's like in a first world, and I know that no first world was perfect, but in a first world country, it's so far. How did you start? Like, what were the next steps? Because we're all about what's your future, right? Accountability is about action, because one thing's understanding, right, and talking about it. Another thing is doing what you guys did, which was like, we're going to change the world, and it's not one step at a time. You guys are like huge steps.
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
Well, when we started, I mean, we had no idea what we were doing. We just said, well, we've got to do this. And so step by step, you figure it out. And it doesn't take a genius. It just takes someone who's willing to say, okay, how is this going to work? And we said, rather than recreate the wheel and try and build these water projects ourselves and enter a market that we know nothing about and try and make a successful water project, why don't we partner with people who have done it successfully, who have a proven track record, who time and time again are showing that they're building sustainable water solutions? Because for us, we realized, and one of the really interesting things that we learned in our research was the average shelf life of a water well is 18 months. And we said, we do not want to go in and build a water well and have it broken within a year and a half. Like, we want to build a solution that not only sustains itself, but grows over time. And so that's why we said, okay, we can partner with someone who's done this successfully to actually do this the right way. And that's what we've done, is we've made partnerships with our partners now, who are, Shazeeb with Shishir in Bangladesh, but also Impact Water in Kenya, and Viva Con Agua in Ethiopia. Those are our 3 partners, and we traveled to go meet them in person. So we built that personal relationship, and now they're like family to us. We speak to them all the time, and we've been able to come together and build these water projects together. So I would say that's how we really got going, is by leaning on people who have, knowing what we don't know, and leaning on people who have the expertise to really do it the right way from the start.
And to take a step back, like, I think, it was funny how we found all these people, because the first place everyone would go is kind of looking at charities, like who are the leaders in the Western world involving water, and you look at charities. But then, like, a fundamental shift for us was once we were recognizing that charity solutions, as Ellie mentioned, only had a shelf life of 18 months in emerging markets. So every year, hundreds of millions of dollars pours in from, America, Europe, what have you, and through these charity water systems. But the reality is that if you think about a charity and what they're looking to accomplish, is they want to say every year they brought X number of people clean water. And it's supposed to be like a CAGR of a company, where last year you did 20 million, so this year you should do 23 million, right? And the problem with that is we were missing one key fundamental question, and that question was, did the projects you implement 5 years ago still last today? So what was happening was charity monies coming in as Band-Aids getting ripped off, Band-Aid ripped off. And that was a huge hurdle for us. So then we were kind of at this hurdle where we're like, how do we do this if we don't work with charities at all? Because we don't want to do that. And I was driving down the road and was flipping through the radio and just heard—
You're not allowed to drive again, Jack. We need to save life. Ellie, help him!
Yeah, and I just heard, like, Professor Yunus. He was on like a local radio station here in the U.S., NPR, and he was doing a podcast interview on his new book at the time, World of 3 Zeros, and he was talking about like a social business and how a business can be created to be this impact generation vessel, and that was what kind of opened us to the wormhole, where we bought the book, bought some more books, started learning about social business and social enterprise, and then we're off to the races.
It's funny you say that, because I heard Ellie talking about partnerships, and it's so interesting how, we're all part of the same family, and we're all social entrepreneurs, but we were social entrepreneurs without the world telling us to become a social entrepreneur. And very similar to you guys and like account entrepreneurs and every other business that I've ever had, it's all about partnerships, right? Because if you want to change the world, you need to do it. And it's not just about just business partnerships, as in like you guys being business co-founders, but it's also about collaborating with other people. And it's interesting, like how easy wasn't it for you to connect with Shazib over in Bangladesh and like strengthen your connections, your power, your results? And it's interesting that because I attended Professor Muhammad Yunus's presentation. I was actually presenting a couple of years ago in the Philippines, and literally, I think there was maybe 450 people. They all became my best friends. Like from like one conference of 3 days. And it's almost like it's within our DNA. And I think a lot of it is in our generation. It's just about, like, we feel like it's our responsibility to do it. I'd like to know from you guys, so what is social business? And I know that social business, social entrepreneurship, and B Corp, they all have similarities. So I know that Professor Muhammad Yunus is one of your leaders and mentors and inspirations as well. Same to us. But so can you explain to everybody that's watching us live and everybody that's going to watch us afterwards as well, what is social business? What is social entrepreneurship? And why did you guys decide to become a B Corp? And also, what was the process? Because I know the B Corp is becoming more and more popular, but not every country. Like here in Australia, there's no structure for B Corp. You can be a B Corp somewhere else and then talk about it here, but the government doesn't have that as an option. Can you share with us?
Yeah, no worries. So we're a public benefit corporation. And the reason for that is in the US, if we were to just set up a C Corp, for example, then we would have a fiduciary responsibility to investors to be profit seeking in nature. And what that basically means is you can't make impact investments like you want to unless there's a direct return to investors because you're limiting the scope of the fiduciary responsibility that you hold to them. So that's a big problem, right, for a social entrepreneur, because we want to make investments into things we care about. And I think if we think about the way the world is moving and what consumers are looking for today, what we find is that the world is moving in a multitude of ways, but one is led by consumers that are actually putting pressure on businesses to say, hey, what are you doing? And I think why I'm really optimistic about social entrepreneurship into the future is that consumers are leading this charge and actually saying, hey, what are you doing? Show up. And that's why we made a couple key decisions early on in our business. One, which was to be a public benefit corp, meaning that we could make these impact investments. Two was to have complete financial transparency so that we could just say, hey, this is where every dollar goes in this transaction. And that way, just, there is no like, hey, yeah, we're giving away impact investments here, but we're not going to tell you exactly what. So just opening that up, hey, here's shine a light on our business. We're willing to tell you, the consumer, anything. And then if I think about a social business, to answer your first question, a social business is signed, like basically in the very beginning, what it's looking to accomplish is to be a impact vessel. And a business that is empowering people to play a part in the business, both in the equity shareholding of the business and to empower them basically to better their lives and better the community. So by nature, the definition would be that it's a non-dividend company, a company that does not pay high yielding dividends to shareholders. This is a company that is actually set up to be an impact vessel in perpetuity. So if I think about the way the future is moving, what's really neat is I think in the pandemic, a pandemic world, what we've seen is that there's a big role for these businesses to play in the world of the future, because we need to have organizations that set out to make an impact from the get-go, because otherwise it's very tough for them to maximize their impact and to create kind of the change that's needed in the world of the future.
And tell us a little bit, how do you measure your impact? Because this is a question that a lot of people talk about. Let's make a difference in the world or become a social business. But it's very hard. Like, how do you say your goals and how are you guys doing your impact measurement? And I know that you guys, and I want next question will be like, what's on the journey of POWWater? Because you guys have changed so much and you've grown so much recently. But when you think about impacting, what suggestions do you have for entrepreneurs that are looking at setting up a social business so that they can have the impact, and how do they set the goals and how do they measure the impact? Because what I've seen a lot with the social entrepreneurial space and even the charity, like you try to solve a problem, but you don't realize sometimes the damage you cause around, or you solve a problem for the short term. And yeah, it's kind of like you see with politicians, like sometimes they do something just to get a vote, but that's not good for society. And I know that you guys, with what you're doing, that I can't wait for you guys to share the whole app solution you guys are building, it's long term. And you could almost it's not even about long term. You can eliminate this issue at a global scale. So what were some goals you guys implemented? And how did you learn about creating the right measurement so you can have a positive impact?
I think it all came down to sustainability for us. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Like, we were not looking to go in and say, okay, we're going to build a water solution, and then we can say we've done it and we've done our job and that's it. We wanted to be able to say, especially because we're building a consumer brand, we wanted to say to our consumers, okay, like, you're buying this water bottle from us. We're using the proceeds to invest in water projects, and 5 years from now, you can check back in on the project that you funded, and not only is it still there, but it's actually reached 5 times the number of people that it reached in year 1. And so for that was just like the most important thing for us, is making sure that these projects are going to grow over time. And when we look at our impact, how do we measure that? I think it's all about the vetting up front of like understanding the community that we're working in, who is the partner on the ground that's supporting. And one thing that we touched on earlier is we're not building a project ourselves and leaving. We're working with a local entrepreneur who has skin in the game, who has incentive to keep this project running. And so our job is not to be the face of the project. Our job is to work with someone local who has a local community around them, to be able to uplift the community through clean water. And what we've seen, for example, in Africa, where we've worked with schools, is the ripple effects of the impact, where we help get clean water into the school. And then as a result, kids attend school where they would otherwise be going to fetch water. Their mothers are getting jobs during the day. And the school teachers are reporting that the children feel better. They're not asking to go home because they feel sick. Overall, the ripple effects are massive, honestly. And so it's all about setting it up front, and then just seeing over time. It's like a slow and steady burn, and you start to see the impact compounding when you do it the right way, versus upfront wanting to have a huge splash and say we did X, Y, Z, but then tomorrow those numbers not really being there.
That's what we see, like there's a side of entrepreneurship. It's all about media coverage and doing this big event, but then most things die. So I've got here next to me the beautiful bottle that you guys make for me that I absolutely love. It was at the campus when I was living overseas, and it was literally the first thing I grabbed out of the campus when I moved back to Australia. I'm like, it's mine, I'm gonna keep it around. And Jack, you're gonna laugh at this, but sometimes I drink on it, and sometimes, because I love fresh flowers, sometimes I turn it into a vase.
There you go. That's the first I've heard of that.
It's just so beautiful, and the quality, yeah, it's amazing. One of our legends that's watching over Facebook, Hannah just sent me a message. She was trying to order a bottle, and she said she was struggling, so she needs to speak to you afterwards because she wants to have some bottles sent to her. She's based over in Melbourne. So yeah, so it's cool, it's beautiful. So now share with us, guys. So how did you connect the dots of creating like bottles with the cups, and how did you then suddenly shift into the app? And I want you guys to share what you're doing, because it's still not on your website. So I think for many of us that are watching it live through Facebook, they still don't know this new big shift that you guys are going through. So talk to us about the steps, and how did you identify this opportunity? Because as entrepreneurs, no matter how successful you are, you need to continuously innovate and bring new opportunities. So can you guys share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were in Bangladesh in January of this year, and we were visiting with Shazib and Professor Yunus, as well as the main reason for the trip was to visit with Shashir Water, who we had just funded. And while we were there, it's like one of these interesting moments where, as an entrepreneur, you have to really believe in serendipity. And when things happen to you, you might need to just open your eyes a little, right? And so we get there, and like first meeting off the bat, we were speaking with Professor Yunus, and he was basically giving us a challenge to open our eyes to how technology could play a role in the water space over the field visit, right? And so we're in the field speaking with our entrepreneur, his name is Shaheen, about kind of some of his problems that he had. And as an entrepreneur, another great place to always start is a problem, right? You're always looking for the problem. So he starts to tell us about these problems, and he has very cost-effective water. He has a great filtration system that's filtering very high-quality water. And third, he has the ability to now bottle this water and distribute it through local kind of delivery drivers that he has on his staff. But he was having a tough time scaling, and he couldn't figure out how he was going to kind of jump from his normal customer segment to this bigger customer segment, which we had basically invested in for him to grow. So we're like, okay, we got to figure out and try to how you can scale this. And so we went into the field and began speaking with his customer segment around some of the problems that they had when it came to water. And what we found was that many of these customers, would buy from a multitude of vendors, and overall, they really did not have any good things to say about the private water market as a whole. And their big problems as a customer was around cost competition, and not having access to information around these things, really. So they weren't empowered to make decisions that were reflective of their best interest around cost, because there was no purview into cost competition in real time. And oftentimes what we see with water is as there are kind of times of need, what happens is the price of water skyrockets. So, and as you actually go down to the base of the pyramid, as you go down the socioeconomic pyramid, what's really fascinating in water is the price of water increases dramatically as you go down per liter. So the bottom of the pyramid might be paying 15 to 30x per liter what the top of the pyramid, who has access to municipal supplies, is charging. But they also had no purview into delivery time. So the driver or the vendor would say, hey, I'll be there in 2 hours, but he might not show up for quite some time. And that's a significant amount of opportunity cost that's lost and dead time. And then tertiary quality. What's the quality of the water in real time? Because this is oftentimes a fluctuating thing. So I began to start thinking about this, and then it wasn't until I asked someone, okay, order water from me. Show me how I would order water from a vendor. And he, in Mymensingh, Bangladesh, and in like pretty much a slum, he picks up a Android smartphone and like immediately calls the vendor, and they're haggling on cost. They're haggling on timing of delivery. And I immediately just realized, we need to build a digital marketplace for this. We need to have a way to streamline efficiencies and empower consumers to make real-time informed decisions around cost, quality, and timing, such that what can then happen is we can begin building a neural network to uplift this entire kind of economy and have vendors that are quality vendors with best practices rise to the top, and vendors that are kind of the bad actors in the market, which they're bad actors in every market, but particularly in this market there are quite a few, kind of rise to the bottom, or fall down to the bottom. And so so that was like our light bulb moment, and we just basically realized, like, holy shit, like we need to do this, like this is our moment right here. This needs to be done. And since then, it's just been off to the races. So it took us a long time to figure out what that looked like, and the amount of research and due diligence that had to go in. But just another thing where if you send stuff out to the universe, it sometimes sends it back through serendipity. And we've been able to take step by step and really kind of see a vision on it, and see a pilot, and see a strategy that we believe has a great chance of success.
And how are you finding, because you're operating now a completely different business, because before you were doing a product business, and now you're doing tech.
Yeah.
What have the two of you and your team had to do? Because you had to develop completely different skills and build new teams, and also get funding, right? Because technology is expensive, and every time I speak to an IT company, like, we'll get that done in a week, and like, I need it for yesterday, but it ended up taking them 3 months. So how has that been? Because I know that that's a big fear of most social entrepreneurs. They're so scared of technology. They want to change the world. And once they decide to take the first step, it takes them a while. But then afterwards, technology is just like, no, I'm going to do things manually. And they think there's more risk in doing it. Like with technology, the reality is that there's a risk up front, like a cost, but afterwards it helps to scale. So how have you two dealt with it?
So we've taken the lean startup approach, and I think that this makes a lot of sense, where I think there's this feeling about technology where it's this like really complex thing that you're building and you better get it right the first time because you're putting so much money into it. But for us, actually, we spent the past 8 months doing our research and understanding as much as we can about the problem in the field, the dynamics in the field. How does the consumer think about different things? What is the consumer behavior? These are the more important things to learn in and out. And then with the technology, our approach is iterate as we go. So build something very, very simple and add on features from there and use the customer feedback to iterate as you go. I think what's the saying that we have?
It's fix a plane as you fly it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's just the life of an entrepreneur. I remember when I was building Academy Spinners, one of my mentors said, Paula, you're like jumping off a plane, you haven't even tested your parachute. And I'm like, well, I'll just learn how to fly along the way, or I'll get someone to help, and I'm light, so I'll land lightly on the ground. But it's just when you're doing something you absolutely love, and I can see that both of you guys also like, you're very good at communicating and you trust the universe, right? You just know that you've got good intentions and the right people will back you up, and
time is the greatest asset. Yeah, time is the greatest asset we have. And, one thing that has translated into a product, into a, software company is that, we've had to navigate some roadblocks and some road bumps. So maybe bumps that when you first start a business, oh, that's a big bump. Now, we're cruising over that bump going 60 with no tractor trailer coming. And now we have bigger bumps that we deal with. And, you always have kind of like your own path. You're pushing up a truck up a hill and trying to gain some momentum. But I think what's happened is over time, you're able to kind of have a better lens and vantage point over, when to rock the boat and when not.
And I also like to know from you guys, so you guys are co-founders. How do you manage this relationship? So you guys are clearly amazing at building relationships externally, and also amazing at building a team that can like pivot from one business model to completely the other way across different countries in the world. I know you guys are focusing in one place at the moment in Africa, but I know that you guys will be all over the world in the next few months. So how did you guys decide to become co-founders, and how do you manage your tasks, and what recommendations? Because you hear two things in the world, and you hear a lot how like start and go fast, and then afterwards you build a team, but you also hear a lot from investors that they don't want to hear your idea if you don't have a co-founder. But then when you have a co-founder, often things fall apart. And of course, on social media, everything looks easy and fun, but we know that as an entrepreneur, you're solving a problem for your business. Like your business solves a problem, but then you're problem solving 24 hours, right? There's not a minute of our day that we sit and just like, oh, we're casually going to do something. Everything we do, we are problem solving. So how do you guys manage your co-founding relationship, and how do you make sure that you guys are always progressing, but also getting along and using everybody's strengths?
I think that's key. So Jack and I have very complementary skill sets. Like I am the nuts of the bolts of the business. I am how is this actually going to work operationally? What are the mechanics of this? And he is the visionary. He is the like, let's shoot for the stars. Let's do this. Let's do that. And I'm like, wait, like, okay, how is that actually going to get done? But I think that dynamic is crucial. Like you need to be able to counterbalance, and we're actually working with a leadership coach right now who approached us, but it's been amazing because one of the biggest things that he emphasizes is you have to get really comfortable with disagreement. And actually, he goes so far as to say that if you agree, then you're not going to have a productive workplace, because it's that debate that gets you to the next level. And so we've fully embraced that. Just the constant, I think we should do it this way. I think we should do it this way. Okay, let's talk about this and figure it out. And I think that's kind of our dynamic of how do we get to where we need to go and both play to our strengths, and who do we need to pull in? What sorts of team members do we need to hire? What sorts of co-founders? We just brought on two hydrologists for the water app, because we recognize that we need someone. These are guys who have expertise consulting for, large municipalities on how to run their water system. So I would say, it's just recognizing, okay, what are your strengths, playing to your strengths? What are his strengths, playing to your strengths, and respecting them, but at the same time being open to, the debate that gets you to where you need to go. What would you say?
There's a few things I would just add. Like, I thought that was great, Ellie. You know what you know. you know what you don't know, but you don't know what you don't know. And that's really true, because you need to recognize that there's so much out there that you don't know and you're not the subject matter expert on. And I think for our team, where we've had like a semblance of success is recognizing that, and then being able to kind of key in and connect dots, or recognize, okay, this person, like I'll give you an example, right? So at first on the water app, one of the biggest private and most robust private water markets in the world is in southern India. Bangalore and Hyderabad, Silicon Valley of India, if you will, and they have a huge problem with water. And nearly all of the water coming into Bangalore is trucked in via the Kaveri River. And there's a ton of private water actors. And we were doing a ton of research there. And we were having a conversation with this guy who Ellie connected with, this American guy running another water business in Dhaka, Bangladesh, and just picking his brain about the idea of what he had seen, because he had done like a scholarship in Calcutta. And I love the idea. And then he was like, well, you should talk with my roommate in Calcutta, because he is working on something very similar, and it's called H2Go in Bangalore. And okay, introduce us to him. And there's all these moments where you kind of are like working dots to the next guy. So then he introduces us to this other guy, and it turns out that these were the hydrologists, and they had just spent a year in Bangalore trying to study this exact problem, and were backing off of Bangalore a little bit, looking at some other marketplaces, but they were looking for business co-founders. And we were looking for hydrologists. So we were just kind of like, let's merge, let's do this together. And then I think the other thing I would add, so not only having an attuned eye to that, but also is just transparency. As a company, our values are purpose, altruism, and transparency. And transparency is key in a co-founding relationship, because as Ellie mentioned, what we're striving for is a culture of debate, a culture of honesty, and a culture of being able to table anything so that we can iterate and we can work in real time. And transparency is key there, because you need to be able to always be honest with your co-founders and tell them exactly how you feel on particular things, because if you don't, then a little problem is going to turn into a big problem in quite some time.
Yeah, problems don't age well.
Yeah.
And you guys have a mission that is so big that when you've got the transparent, everybody's working towards a common goal, but it's a positive goal. So then transparency and everybody makes mistakes, but if you're sharing your feelings and your mistakes or your issues or struggles, everybody can support each other. Can you guys share with us, do you have by any chance the deck that you guys showed me last week on where you guys are now, what you've achieved, and the next steps? Because I think it's really interesting for everybody, because we've got a lot of our legends logging in and watching, and they love seeing pictures and how you guys pitching. And I think it's also very important for all of us within our community, because we're all social entrepreneurs, to know what you guys are doing and share this presentation with everyone in our community, because you guys are trying to raise a little bit of funds just so you can scale faster. And I know that you guys have been already enough funds to operate, but you're trying to raise a little bit extra just to make sure that you're safe. So can you guys share the presentation so we can learn more about it, and also so we can all get together and share within our community at a global scale? Are you guys are looking for funding also from overseas, right? So it's not just within the United States. It can come around the world. Yeah.
We're a multinational business. So
you can share that with us, so then our community can share with everybody. So guys, everybody can share this with 10 friends, this presentation. It'd be amazing, because we really want to see POWWater taking over the world, so we can overcome this water issue that we've had, because it's just so unfair the way water's being distributed at the moment, especially in places like Africa that we care so much about. And not just Africa, I'm sure there's even places in Australia. Let me make you guys, I need to make you guys a co-host. 1 second. I don't know how to do this. 1 second. Let me just call Lucas, because he made me a host.
Lucas.
Okay, I can share the screen. Do you guys want to send me the link, just in case?
Yeah, we can do that.
I should have told Lucas you guys were going to be presenting. He made me a co-host. Hello. I needed to make them the host, because they're going to share the slides. Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Big hugs. Lucas is sharing right now, so you guys are going to be the host. In a couple of seconds, you guys will be able to share. Perfect. And then just for everybody that's logged, okay, Ellie, you're already a host. So guys, I've got a copy of this presentation in my email. I don't know if it's going to be the exact same one, but it's the same one, isn't it? So if anyone wants a copy to share with potential investors or anyone that's interested in collaborating, volunteering, or even working, just send me an email to info@aestudy.com, and then we'll be able to share it with you guys as well.
Awesome.
I think it's really amazing what you guys have done. Your presentation is just so clear and so incredible, the work that you guys are doing.
Can you see our screen, Paula?
We can, yeah, 100%.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. So just to introduce the POWWater app, we spoke a little bit about it, but really what we're looking to build is a mobile marketplace, and basically to solve some of these inefficiencies that we've seen firsthand. So just a bit on our background, you know, as I mentioned, we're a public benefit corporation. Our mission is to empower communities globally through access to clean water. And we've done this through our drinkware line. The new opportunity I also mentioned is that we've seen firsthand the unreliable and uneven quality and exploitative pricing that exists in this marketplace. And that's the problem that we're really trying to solve, is to empower consumers to purchase water from high quality vendors and to make those decisions. You know, leveraging our current team, a former Microsoft developer, as well as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we phase 1 funding from the Gates Foundation. Basically what this means is every year about 5,000 social enterprises apply to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and they accept 50 that they believe have the propensity to change the world. And we work with YY Ventures out of Bangladesh as our software partner. Our track record, just a few things I'll note. We have about 80,000 people that are drinking sustainable, safe water from our programs to date, which is something we're proud of. And last year, we were recognized at the United Nations General Assembly, speaking on youth, social entrepreneurship, and technology, which was fantastic. And just to take a step back, when I speak about the private water market, what am I speaking about? So essentially, in the emerging markets and in kind of what we call in the West, you know, the developing world, even though I hate that term, is basically that where the public utilities cannot supply water to one's home via piped infrastructure, the private water market thrives. And this is a market that we really see as growing. And the reason for that are a few things. One is rapid urbanization in emerging market cities is taking more water out of the groundwater aquifer than ever before. When you take that amount of water out of a groundwater aquifer, what you do is you actually create a vacuum in the aquifer. So then what we see is contaminated groundwater will actually seep in to that aquifer. And that might be wastewater that's been mismanaged. You know, so then you have problems with cholera or typhoid into the groundwater table. But it also in coastal regions might be salt water. And that's a trend that we see increasing quite rapidly as well, is that in coastal regions of the world, these big coastal cities of Africa and South Asia, salt water is coming into the groundwater table, which then makes the water increasingly brackish. So what's happened is that this private water market, which if you think about it, 2/3 of Africa does not have piped water to their home, but even people that do have piped water to their home through public utility mismanagement might not trust that piped water. So for one, the water might not run all hours of the day. It might only run a few hours of the day. But even if you do have piped water to your home, oftentimes the pipes are leaky, such that contaminated groundwater will actually come into those pipes, making people not want to drink it or wanting to treat it. So even people that have piped water will also buy water from the private water market. So what's happened is we have an incredibly fragmented market with no streamlined efficiencies. It's really a dark marketplace, and that is the fragmented private water market. So just to double down here, what I would say is that one, thousands of vendors exist in nearly every major emerging market city. And two, the majority of households are buying water from this market. The private water market has just filled this gap that the municipality has left. So just to talk a little bit about that problem, some more that we see on the consumer side, what is it? Consumers are charged exploitative or exorbitant pricing. And they have no purview into competition and cost competition in real time. Two, delivery ordering is very ad hoc. So people are currently getting water delivered to their door in ad hoc ways. A vendor might have a delivery person. They might be using a third party like a ride share to go pick up water and drop it off. But on average, they're waiting 6 to 9 hours weekly. So there's a ton of dead time. And then not only is delivery unreliable, but water quality is also unreliable and variable. So no accountability exists in this marketplace around water quality, and that's a huge problem. If I'm a consumer, one of the main things they care about is this water quality? And to not have access to that information is a real problem. Now on the vendor side, what's unique is that we see some big problems as well. Vendors have no logistics management or delivery route optimization. And what that basically means is that their delivery routes are very spiderwebbed throughout a day. So by coming in and optimizing these routes and allowing for them to have a real-time query, both on people that order off the app, but also people that phone into the business to basically manage their systems and basically calculate this query in real time, what we're able to do is allow for them to reach more customers throughout the course of the day, make more money, and it's good for their business. It's also good for our consumer to know when this water is coming. Other thing about spiderweb delivery routes is there's a ton of excess petrol that's burned when you're sitting in traffic. So what do we see as the solution? It's a mobile marketplace on Android and iOS. There's a few kind of key features that we're looking for right now. The first is user reviews. So at the end of each transaction, being able to say, hey, how was that delivery 0 to 5 stars? How was that quality of water 0 to 5 stars? And kind of calculating this data is something that then empowers future consumers to make decisions that are informed. GPS tracking and ETAs, I mentioned a second ago about informing consumers about timing and optimizing routes. But then there are a few other things we look to. One is bulk pricing. Hey, you buy 9, you get 1 free. A type of loyalty program like that to push back on, you know, kind of like what we see with the Uber market, which is you get in the ride with a Uber driver and he says, hey, next time call me direct. Well, by having a loyalty program, we can push back on that. And then secure payments are huge. You know, one thing when we think about Africa that inspires us just so much is how mobile banking has just really come in and transcended kind of our institutions of the West, if you will. You know, we went from landline to Nokia or Razor phone to smartphone, and our institutions evolved accordingly. But in many of the emerging markets, what we see is they went from not having access to banking to having a bank on their phone. So Kenya in particular, where we are piloting this project, has one of the highest rates of mobile banking in the world through M-Pesa, which is just incredible. So people are sending money digitally. So how does this work? You know, we onboard supply, water kiosks, ATMs, existing distributors. All vendors are verified and vetted. We currently have onboarded 3, and many of these vendors have delivery drivers on their staff. We optimize their logistics, but then there are also ad hoc delivery drivers in the marketplace. They might be delivering for Jumia, they might be delivering for some other food delivery services, and these people can basically add water to their existing portfolio. So we'll look to add them as well, which then increases the supply channel of many of these distributors who currently the only distribution they have, last mile that is to one's home, is via their drivers. So by now having someone be able to kind of pick up the water and distribute it wholesale, it's good for their business as well, reaching more customers. We really look at the middle and upper class households and small and medium sized businesses at first as our target subset. And the reason for that is 1, they have the propensity to pay. They're already paying for water. 2, they're getting water delivered to their doorstep quite often. So we're not changing consumer behavior. And I think that's really important to know, is what we're doing is streamlining processes and creating efficiencies in a marketplace. We're not convincing people to order water to their home. They're already doing that. We're just making their life easier at one click of a button. Climate change always needs to be forefront in our mind. If we look at this bike right here, what's really cool is this bike runs on solar energy. So I mentioned we have pre-onboarded vendors. Some of our vendors, this is Winsure, a German company. They're incredible. They've been a close kind of partner of ours for quite some time. And basically, their solution offputs excess solar energy. And with that excess solar energy, then what we're able to do is charge these bikes. that run on solar energy. This solution is made by Siemens. And this thing looks clunky. I'm telling you that right now. If you see, I think there's 7 20-liter blue jars. That thing can scoot. It's a quick vehicle, and it's, perfect for an urban landscape in Africa if you've sat in traffic there before. Second, is when we think about climate change, is the way that we're actually increasing and heightening the access points in a particular urban environment is very healthy for the city's aquifer. It's better to be drawing water from a multitude of sources than it is to be drawing water from one heavily. Water is life. So it should come as no surprise that when we create technology to empower consumers around water quality and purchasing water from the private water vendor, what we're also doing is creating ripple effects that positively impact many SDGs. So these are just a few. We could argue that it affects many more, but that really inspires us, is that the ability to create an impact through this is far and wide. Opportunity size, this is another thing I really don't need to touch on too much. We think 10 billion is a very conservative number. That number we believe is closer to 25, but we always want to be conservative. But the other thing I'd add is that 2/3 of urban residents across Africa don't have piped water to their homes, which is just extraordinary if you think about it. Our pilot strategy, Mombasa. The reason for that is Mombasa is kind of this perfect place to test this technology. I mean, if we look at how the private water market has kind of come into Mombasa in the last 10 years, it's extraordinary. In 2010, 72% of Mombasa town had access to some semblance of municipal supply. Today, that number is down to 43%. Salt water has intruded dramatically into the groundwater table, making the groundwater table very brackish. And what's happened is then the private water market has filled this gap. So there's 1,500 vendors, private water vendors in Mombasa today. And if we pair that with the fact that Kenya has an incredibly high rate of mobile penetration and smartphone penetration combined with mobile banking, and we really look at Kenya as a place that technology is getting piloted and then rolled out across emerging markets. It's why, Professor Yunus and his team have a strategic focus on East Africa. The Gates Foundation has a strategic focus on East Africa, and what we're seeing in East Africa is nothing short of brilliant transformation. So we have the right team, Paula. You mentioned earlier that our existing revenue streams have been able to fund a lot of our business, and that's true here as well, where we've been able to pay for the technology. We have the money to go in and do this, but what we're looking to raise money for now is for promotional and digital advertising, because if we look to how marketplaces grow, and I'd be happy to talk about this investment structure with anyone offline. My email is jack@POWWater. Pretty simple. But if we look at where we really
everybody at the end of the presentation, we can send everybody a copy of the recording, and then we'll send your details, Ellie, and your details, Jack.
Perfect. Awesome. But if we look at what we need money for right now and capital for, it's really for promotional and digital ads. If we look at data supporting how marketplaces like ours grow, the best way to grow is through digital grassroots word of mouth marketing. And if you think about when Uber came out or when Airbnb came out, how did they do this? It was simple. It was, hey, Paula, your first ride on Airbnb is 50% off. Share this code
Uber.
with, Uber, sorry. You share this code with 5 of your friends. They get 50% off their first ride when they download the app, and you get 50% off your next ride when they sign up. And that's how marketplaces grow. So that's how we're going to be able to gas this fire, paired with digital ads and strategic kind of digital ad spend that is also promotional in nature. So that's what really excites us, is that we have the right team to make this happen. As I mentioned, we're working really closely with YY Ventures, and Tazeen is their newest CEO, just appointed. He's a rock star. Absolutely love the guy. And he has a team of 17. And these are coders that do everything from UX to design and branding. And they're the right team for the job out of Bangladesh. And then on the hydrology side, Alec and Casey are fantastic partners. I mean, these are people that have spent their whole career researching this problem. And they came into it in a very different lens than us, which I'll just briefly mention. Ellie and I came in on the private vendor side, but Dr. Brown and Alec had been advising water municipalities through the World Bank for years. And what they saw was that municipalities are oftentimes run like businesses themselves, and they want to reach more constituents and they want to grow their revenue. And it just so happens they also have the cheapest water. They just do not have a good way of delivering the water to one's doorstep, especially in these communities without piped infrastructure. And what they also saw is that exactly the problem I mentioned earlier, that with piped infrastructure comes leaky pipe infrastructure or siphoning of pipes, such that 40% of piped water out of a municipality is lost in the transaction process through leaky pipes and siphoned pipes. And that's paired with the fact that the end consumer doesn't even trust to drink it. And that's not because the water at the municipality isn't high quality. It's because of the piping infrastructure and the contaminants that come in during that process. So what they really identified was, wow, this can be a last mile solution directly for the municipality. And with that, these private vendors that are upcharging, municipal water liter per liter, let's say 5x to 20x what the municipality is charging, we can basically bring in the municipality as a last mile solution, heighten supply, create cost competition, lower the cost long term, and do something that is incredibly meaningful for the municipal supplier, but also the community as a whole and the constituents that they want to reach. And that's something that really excites us, is the ability to pilot this in Mombasa, basically model it, show how it's effective, and then roll it all out across East Africa, West Africa, South Africa, and South Asia and beyond, honestly. Because one thing that I'll just mention also quickly is that in the developing world, in the developed world rather, and in Australia and in America and in Canada or Europe or what have you, we think that we're sitting pretty with water right now. And we think, oh, well, that's a developing world problem. That's not going to be us. And the reality is that it will be us, because if we look at the modeling around water and around how we're building our own water infrastructure, it's not sustainable. And in Cape Town, actually, it's a great example of that, because Cape Town has really high quality piped water. And nearly most people that have piped water to their homes in Cape Town trust that water and drink that water. And when Day Zero came about and people, didn't have the same access to water, what happened is the private water market just sprung up, of course. And if we look at America as an example and how we deal with the Colorado River, which is all of our mountain runoff, all that water then gets piped out to Southern California, to Arizona, areas that historically are deserts. And we build golf courses and pump water on our lawn, and that water never returns to the Colorado River ecosystem. And what then happens is that long term, we are depleting the Colorado River ecosystem's water, and we will have a water problem here. And if you look at the cities, it's crazy. London's on that list. LA, I mentioned Vegas in the West, but I guarantee you in Australia, you have problems with that as well.
Australia, we're a big desert. It's one of the driest islands in the world. Like, no one understands, but 100 kilometers from the borders is all the desert. And it's funny you're saying, I lived in South Africa. I lived in Port Elizabeth, and I lived in Mexico City in Brazil, and you would never, ever, ever drink water out of a tap, ever. And the amount of plastic and the pollution, not just from the plastic, but it's insane, the amount. And it's just it's your only option. So, and you want to get it, and what you're saying, the price, they can just charge you anything. Even here in Australia, we've got a good water system. You can drink it from the tap, but bottled water is so expensive. The market, they just can put any price, because when you're thirsty, or if you're in Africa, it's a survival. You can't just not have water. So yes, it's a huge, huge, huge opportunity. Yeah, cool. So guys, we have 8 minutes until we go into, because we're going to be running a class right after this. What's next from you guys? So you guys are raising $500,000. What's next? When do you guys start? So you need to raise $500,000 to start the digital campaign, or what are you guys up to for the next few weeks? Because I know that you guys move super fast.
Yes. So we're flying to Mombasa on October 19th. For a while, we were waiting for the borders to open. Talk about challenges. COVID put us in a bit of an uncertain timeline, but finally the borders opened. We booked our flights. And really our focus is fundraising right now, because as soon as we get on the ground, we want to be able to make a splash right away. And that's why we're raising $500,000, because we don't want to have to be distracted by fundraising. We'd rather do that now and be able to, execute. Once we get on the ground, it's all about execution. Yeah, and we launched the capital campaign 2 weeks ago, and it's going really well. So we've already kind of been really striding towards our goals, have a lot of
investors already lined up and are in late stage discussions with other investors and are looking to have these conversations with anybody that's really interested seriously about taking this leap with us.
No, it's so exciting. Like whoever, like everybody that's going to be investing in you guys is making such a positive impact, and it's like guaranteed success in their investment. Like you can't be more of a win-win. This is why I can't stop thinking about you guys, and I can't stop telling everybody. And I've just realized one of my friends in Brazil owns one of the biggest water companies. I'm going to give him a call, and I'm going to send him a copy of the video recording as well. So this is so good. And I can see here our dear friend Marcelino, who's the ambassador of Panama, has just logged in. Marcelino, please share it with everybody as well. Please, everybody, because you're super well connected. Cool, guys. So thank you so much for your time, for sharing your journey, your thoughts around social entrepreneurship, how you set up your B Corp, your next steps, and also for sharing your pitch deck. So just again, guys, if anyone wants a copy of the pitch deck, just send me an email and I will send it over to you guys. And then everybody that's signed up, I will be sending you guys a copy of the recording along with Jack and Ellie's email so you guys can contact them directly. And if I can ask everybody for a favor, please share this with absolutely everybody, because what POWWater is doing is absolutely mind-blowing. They're going to change the world, but it's all about collaboration. So social entrepreneurship is all about partnership and collaboration, and you never know that one little share can completely change the world. So please share with absolutely everybody. Jack and Ellie, thank you so much. I wish I could you guys a hug and congratulate you guys, but I've got my water bottle here. I've got my logo and your logo. The two coolest logos in town together. You're the icon, you're the logo. Oh my God, everything's so beautiful. So thank you guys so much. So Marcelino here is asking for the website. Do you guys want to type in your website here in the chat box?
Sure.
So you can log in? But I'll send everybody an email with all of the information as well. I know that some of you guys couldn't log in from the beginning. You were watching through Facebook, so we're going to share everything in, because I can see like most of our community ended up logging on Facebook. I don't know what happened with the link. But yeah, so thanks, Jack and Ellie. Congratulations on all of your success. And I know you guys will raise this in the next few days. So big hugs, congrats.
Thank you, Paula. You really inspire us.
Sorry, no, you inspire us.
Thank you.
Paula, we really appreciate you.
Thank
Thank you so much.
See you guys. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.